Black billionaire served moldy food 9 minutes later. He fired the entire airline crew before we dive in this story. Hit the comments and tell us your city or country. Let's see how far this story reaches. If you like the video, please subscribe. The private cabin smelled off the moment he sat down. But Jamal Lawson, billionaire investor and aviation tycoon, didn't make a fuss. He had flown thousands of times and eaten hundreds of in-flight meals. So when the flight attendant smiled and handed him a tray of food, he gave a polite nod. Then he lifted the lid, mold, on the chicken, fuzzy green, reeking of rot. The rest of the cabin ate gourmet. He was the only black passenger in first class. He didn't complain. He made a phone call. 9 minutes later, the entire crew was unemployed. Watch until the end. Jamal Lawson wasn't just rich. He owned one of the country's fastest-growing regional airlines. From humble roots in Houston's Fifth Ward to global boardrooms, he built his empire through grit, silence, and precision. On this particular day, he chose not to fly private. He was doing a surprise inspection of one of his own airline's contracted luxury flights, an unannounced quality check. Dressed in a plain polo and jeans, he didn't wear his wealth or status on his sleeve. The flight was filled with executives and influencers. Jamal quietly boarded, nodded to the staff, and took his seat in first class. The flight attendant barely acknowledged him. No eye contact, no warmth. When she passed out drinks, she skipped his row. When lunch arrived, she shoved his tray forward. Without a word, he lifted the lid. What he saw wasn't just bad service, it was an insult. A racially coded message wrapped in rotting food. The chicken was gray and green. The rice beneath it was slimy. Even the dessert cup had condensation on mold-speckled fruit. Jamal didn't flinch. He took a photo and quietly placed the tray aside. Around him, the other first-class passengers laughed over fine steak and wine. The flight attendant never returned. He didn't ask for a replacement. He didn't raise his voice. Instead, he tapped a number into his phone and messaged his chief operating officer. No words, just the photo. And one instruction: find out who catered this flight and who approved it. 7 minutes later, the reply came back. The crew had deviated from their scheduled meal plan. They'd ordered a cheaper supplier last minute. Without approval. Worse, Jamal's name had been on the manifest. The crew knew exactly who he was. They chose not to care. This wasn't just negligence. It was targeted disrespect. And in his company, disrespect came with consequences. Jamal didn't finish the flight. He asked for the captain, quietly handed him a sealed envelope, and returned to his private hangar at the next layover stop. The envelope contained termination letters. Every crew member's name on the list. The captain read it once and paled. Passengers never knew what happened. But within 9 minutes of that tray being served, careers were over. The catering contract was shredded. A new director of in-flight operations was named. Jamal didn't issue a public statement. He didn't need headlines. He had standards. And he had power. Word spread fast through the aviation world. The staff had served moldy food to the company's founder. Whether out of ignorance or arrogance, it didn't matter. They'd been sloppy and possibly racist, airline insiders whispered about the 9-minute firing. Executives reviewed their onboard protocols in panic. No one wanted to be next. Jamal, meanwhile, flew on privately, quietly. At a press conference weeks later, he simply said, "Excellence is non-negotiable. I don't care if you clean the cabin or fly the plane if you don't respect every passenger. Especially those who built this airline from the ground up, you don't work for me." It wasn't just about mold. It was about dignity, and he had reclaimed his without raising his voice. Jamal's silent move sent an industry-wide message. You don't need to scream to be heard. You don't need to beg for respect when you've earned your place. The crew learned a lesson that day, not just about quality, but about accountability. About how racism doesn't always come loud. It sometimes arrives in a tray of spoiled food, handed out with a sneer, and the world learned something too. Black excellence doesn't need to explain itself. It just acts decisively. Jamal's name is now etched into boardroom lore, not for drama, but for his calm demand for dignity. and for proving that no matter how high you rise, the fight for basic respect is never really over. If you enjoyed this story and thought it provoking, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more powerful narratives. Let us know your thoughts in the comments. Take care.